Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on this live attack simulation on account takeover attacks. This is presented by Karthik Krishnamurthy, CTO Indusface, and Vivek Gopalan, VP Products at Indusface. So before we get started, a couple of housekeeping notes. I am Fani, your moderator. Um, any questions that you have throughout the session, please use the question box at the bottom, and then we will get to these questions at the end of the webinar. Throughout the webinar, we have a number of poll questions to keep it interactive. So feel free to answer these poll questions, and the panelists will discuss these during the webinar. Okay, so before we get started, a couple of slides about Indusface. So we are a website and API security company with close to 5,000 plus customers across 95 countries and 5 offices worldwide. So typically we have 3 product portfolio. One is a web application and API protection platform, Aptrana, on which Vivek and Karthik will demonstrate the account takeover attack capabilities today. Then we also have our risk detection platform, or the VAPT platform, which is Indusface VAS. And then we are also master distributors of Entrust SSL certificates in the Indian region. Now coming to compliance, no matter where you are, we have a bunch of compliances that will support your individual requirements. And now coming to recognitions, we are very proud that we've been recognized by various recognitions over many years. And one thing that we are extremely proud of is the Gartner Peer Insights Customer Choice Badge that we got last year. More on that in a couple of slides. So this we've already discussed. So as mentioned, we have 5,000 plus customers across 95 countries. And this is the Gartner Peer Insight badge that we have. As you see, Indusface is rated on the top right, and along with some of the biggest brands in the website and API security space, and in some of the critical capabilities like customer recommendation rating, we are even further on the top right. No matter which industry you are in, or where you are across the globe, we have a few representative customers. These are just examples of the customers that we have, but any use case, we've been there and done that. Now, every quarter, we do a detailed research report based on the trillions of website requests that our WAP, Aptrana, inspects. Based on that, we do detailed studies on the attack trends, DDoS attacks, bot attacks, and so on. And this is called the State of Application Security Report. Feel free to download it on the website. And this has been covered across major news websites worldwide. With that, let me introduce you to today's panelists. We have Karthik Krishnamurthy, who is the CTO at Indusface. So he has close to 3 decades of experience, a majority of it building highly complex security products. He was the one who launched our first web application scanning solution as well. So from then on, in engineering every single product that we release. Then on the right, we have Vivek Gopalan, who is the VP of Products at Indusface. So he has close to 15 years of experience, majority of it again in security. Prior to Indusface, he was working in the endpoint security space with Dhruva. Now, over to you, Vivek and Karthik.
Thanks, Mani. Thanks for the wonderful wonderful introduction. I need to share my screen. So if you can just give me yeah. I'm just going to share my screen and then get started. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Right. Great. Thanks. Thanks, Mani, again for a wonderful introduction. So let me get started. So first, let me just talk about quickly about the agenda of today's presentation. So what I'll do is we will quickly talk about what is an account takeover attacks, how is it launched, why is it launched, and then Karthik will go over and show some live attack simulations. Then we will talk about how Aptrana is protecting against such attacks, and we will show some demo around those also. So we have a packed agenda for today. So let's get started. So let me start by giving you a quick introduction about account takeover attack. So what's an account takeover attack? As the name suggests, it is an attack meant to take over an account, right? So essentially what it means is hackers are trying to get unauthorized access to an account. They might do it for various reasons, but predominantly it is around data theft or resource theft or to launch other malicious activities or to do some other fraudulent attacks, right? So this is essentially what an account takeover is. On a layman's term, if a website, there is a login page, anyone trying to get behind the login page, but it's not a legitimate user, right? An illegitimate user trying to get behind the login page using various means is eventually termed as an account takeover attack. So this account takeover attack in the recent years have grown rapidly, right? And one of the recent studies suggests that there were nearly about 350% growth year on year on an account takeover attack. And this attack has happened across various industries. Financial industries were the most attacked, and that in fact saw a growth of about 800% or more, right? Followed by e-commerce and food and beverages sites. And the problem with these is also that what they are seeing is uh, majority of these organizations, nearly 30 to 40% of the organizations that were surveyed, saw more than one attack in the last year. In fact, there were about 26% of these companies are seeing attacks every week, right? So that's a huge number, and that kind of sh shows or throws a spotlight uh, on the account takeover attacks and the magnitude of these attacks. And the worst part on this is that once an attack is successful and a breach has happened, it takes nearly 11 months for a closure. This includes about 8 months just to identify that the attack has happened, and then another two to 3 months to fix it. The reason why it takes a lot of time to even identify the attack is because once a attacker is able to identify the username and password, then after that, the behavior is very similar to a legitimate user. So unless there is some trigger or warnings that you get externally, you would not be able to identify it very quickly. And that's why identifying an ATO attacks is very difficult, let alone protecting against those, right? So, and one more thing is the cost of these attacks, right? As these attacks are exploding, one of the studies has even said that an attack can cost enterprises up to 4.6 million, right? A successful attack. So that's the magnitude of attack, and that's why all the security practitioners should be cognizant of this, and it should be one of those attack vectors that they should be constantly monitoring for. In continuation of the impact of these attacks, right? This attack has been happening world over, and a couple of case studies where these attacks were successful is one is Iconic. Iconic is famous e-commerce site in Australia. So here, a credential stuffing attack was launched using stolen credentials that was available in the dark web, and the hacker was able to log in into the user as a legitimate user, and they placed a lot of orders which was delivered at a different location. So the organization got to know only after the users started complaining about it through the social media and others, and then they had to quickly react and provide credits back to the uh, to the users who were affected. But this eventually led to huge reputation crisis as well as financial loss. Similarly, recently there was reports around Microsoft Azure accounts being targeted, where again an account takeover attacks were targeted, eventually compromising more than 200 organizations, where hackers were able to log in as these organizations employees and then launch resources and do other various malicious activity, including data theft. Right. So no one is spared. Everyone is being attacked, and it's a common problem now in the cybersecurity space. So how does an account takeover attack takes place? So as part of an account takeover attack, right? When a hacker decides to do an account takeover attack, or he starts with an intent, first thing he tries to do is identify a website which is valuable, website or application. Essentially, he needs some application websites which has something valuable behind the login page. It could be the login page could be acting as a paywall, behind which there could be video subscriptions or book subscriptions, news subscriptions, or the likes. Or it could be e-commerce sites where there could be credit cards stored, like the example that I showed in the previous slide, where once they log in, they get access to credit card details and then use that for other fraudulent purposes. Or it could be financial apps or wallets which has data, or any application that has sensitive data behind the login pages. So first, they would want to find an application which is valuable enough for them to go through the exercise of an account takeover, because account takeover attacks are generally a sophisticated attack and it takes some time. Once they identify the application, then they decide how they do a reconnaissance. They try to find how do I breach the login page. Various means can be employed, starting from simple credential stuffing attacks. Here, what would happen is a attacker might get stolen username passwords. Such databases are widely available in dark webs. So they can take those username passwords and iterate through these login pages and try and see if any user name password matches. This generally happens because as a user, generally we reuse our username passwords, right? So if any other application was breached and those credentials are stolen, then those credentials can be used in other applications to see if it works. Other common attacks are phishing or social engineering kind of an attacks, where uh, uh, an employee is targeted. There are phishing attacks that is done trying to click a malicious link and get those details. There could be a man-in-browser attacks where there are malicious codes running in the browser, which could capture the username password and then send it to the hacker, which would then eventually allow him to log in as legitimate users. And many of these would be around exploiting the vulnerabilities that are there in an application, because first attack will try and see what is the most vulnerable place, and then you see how can he exploit these vulnerabilities and launch an account takeover attack. So that's generally how an hacker goes about doing an account takeover. So now I will just quickly pass it on to Karthik, who will do a quick live simulation on some of these account takeover attacks.
Thanks, Vivek. That's a good overview summary of the issue. let's get into this. Mani, can I share?
Yeah, you can share.
Yeah. All right. Is it visible, guys?
Yes.
Okay. So let me just, first of all, open the site that we're going to be attacking. Now, this actually is a sample site, a test site, which is made to be vulnerable. Many of you will be familiar with this. Altera Mutual is quite a classic in that sense. And we have hosted it, and this one is, it's known to have vulnerabilities, right? So it's a good way to show or show that if you have a vulnerability, how it can get exploited. So from this, we're going to be showing, the various ways that you could actually get access to somebody else's account. So this particular site, as we know, there's multiple ways to get into the login thing, right? One of the slides, in fact, earlier had somebody writing down the username password, right? Yeah, sure. If somebody walks by your desk, you can get your username password. But that's only people who are physically access to you, right? Attackers obviously they want more scale and not just this thing, and they want to do it remotely. So you look for vulnerabilities in this thing. Now, one of the classic get it is that there's a lot of websites do get compromised, as in the backend gets compromised, not necessarily the website itself, but the databases or some of the leaks in some way. And then there's these bunch of leaked credentials, right? So we have news reports of it, very, very frequently. So one of the things that, for example, here's something that is, from a Telegram channel. You get these kind of things, right? But there's always various sites, there's information about this thing, and certain user ID passwords or big database of user ID passwords, and they do get leaked like that. So let's look at one such thing, right? So we've got a credential file that is leaked like this. It's called credentials. This is a whole bunch of username password combinations. This is still small. This is about 180,000 combinations of username passwords, and it's not. I mean, in reality, you get databases much bigger, especially because more and more things get leaked. And this thing kind of works also because, we obviously, none of us, however security conscious we are, if you're not using password managers, we don't have different username passwords for each and every site. It's just, very, very cumbersome for the human to actually go ahead and go through and look at that kind of stuff, remember that kind of stuff, right? So let's launch an attack on this server to try and get the credentials using this credentials, the text, right? So we've written a small script that will pretty much try all these combinations on the login page and see what actually goes ahead and finds it. So finally it did. I mean, it found it fairly quickly that there's this guy, Jay Smith, with this password, and you can actually go ahead and log in using that. So you do Jay Smith, and sure enough, the password is, and you've logged in as Jay Smith. And obviously, once you're logged in, you can do other things with this, right? Now, what are the other ways that you can get in? Yeah, sure. If you have used a password that is leaked or it's common, then then you will get cracked like this fairly easily. But this site is vulnerable in multiple ways. For example, if I look at this, right, you'll see that it is actually popping up with this. It's vulnerable to a cross-site scripting attack. So this particular site has a lot of vulnerabilities, and an attacker, once they spend the time to find out the vulnerabilities in the site, they can do various other things to kind of steal your credentials, right? So here we also have a server that there's a server here that is like a command and control server kind of stuff. That's where the credentials leak go to kind of stuff, right? If a targeted attack can be launched. I will also just look at, this obviously has been running for a while, so there's lots of other things, but we'll see what's happening in the new thing, right? So now let me go to So somebody sent a mail, right? And this is a phishing attack, because this is somebody, it's a colleague from my own company. I said, oh wow, maybe he has found an amazing offer, and I'm being in security for so long, I should know better, but I click it, right? So you'll see that, nothing here tells you that something bad has happened, but the credentials has been leaked. We've actually stolen your login credentials of this user. And that can be used to basically steal the session of this user and do things on behalf of the user as we need to. I will show you that in a second, actually, but how it can be used or misused and things like that. But this is one other way of this thing, right? By phishing attacks by email, or in another website, there's a link and those kind of things, right? The last thing I want to show you in terms of this attack is that, okay, this person is here, and it's a website, but the website itself, due to the other vulnerabilities, like we saw, it's this website is vulnerable to cross-site scripting, it's vulnerable to SQL injection, and a bunch of other things, and probably a lot more things, right? They could be backend kind of vulnerabilities, etc. So when that is happening, this particular link has been compromised. And once again, if I click this, it looks like it is normal, and same thing. The credentials, the logged in credentials has been leaked. Now, how can it be exploited? Let me show you by going to the same site, but I'll go to login and log in as a different user, right? So yeah, so you're Jane Doe, but obviously, I'm not going to use, browser plugins and stuff. All I'm going to do is take the session ID from here and replace the one there. Right. And then when I go to this thing, if you go back here and see, now suddenly I'm John Smith. And I can take any action on behalf of John Smith, like transferring funds, etc. So this thing is actually taken over. In the first thing that we showed, it's a password. That's probably even worse, because you can log in whenever you can. This particular thing is only for a running session, but as soon as you get it, you have that window of time where the session is active. Typically, it's it's sometimes very, very long, right? Depending on the site. So this is quite a serious thing, especially when you have so many credentials leaked and so many sessions. And if a site is vulnerable, like this particular thing, right? In this case, this link could have been there for for days, weeks, months, and you don't know how many people have clicked on it until something actually happens and gets reported and escalated. Nobody even knows that these kind of things have happened. Right? Cool. All right, Vivek, back to you.
Yeah. Yeah, Karthik, thanks. It's interesting. And I think the last attack that you showed, I mean, that could even bypass 2FAs and the likes, right? So even if there is a 2FA and how if an user has logged in, but because the session has been leaked, an attacker can directly use the session ID. So now 2FA is no more a protection, and 2FA is bypassed, right? So that's very powerful, and that's very interesting, and nice demo around the attack simulation. Okay, let me continue with our presentation. So sorry, yeah. Okay, so I hope you are able to see my screen. So just before we go further, a quick poll question, right? Given how Karthik has demonstrated how an account takeover attack happens and the likes, we just wanted to see how ready you are as an organization to detect these ATO attacks, right? So a quick poll question around that. The poll will start now. We'll give you about 30 seconds to answer this. Okay, I think we can close the poll now. You can publish this. Great. So many have said that they use MFA. MFA has been the predominant mechanism through which you are saying that you will protect against ATO. That is quite common, and that's how many of the organizations protect against ATO. And it is effective, right? I'm not going to say that it's not effective, but it is not foolproof, right? As Karthik just demonstrated, and MFA can be bypassed also, depending on how the application is built and what is the type of attacks that has been launched. So now let's go about and try and see. We have seen how an hacker would go about doing an ATO. Now let's try and see how we can go about protecting against an ATO, right? And the first part of protecting against an ATO is we need to understand the challenges of protecting against, right? And as Karthik demonstrated, the ways on which an ATO attack can be launched are many. It could be as simple as a brute force credential stuffing attacks, but it could be complicated. Exploitation of a vulnerability, injection of links, and then using that for launching a phishing attack or man-in-the-browser attacks and the likes, right? So it can the scale of the ATO attacks can exponentially grow, and with the advancement in the technologies, with easy availability of LLM tools, ML models, and the things, these attacks are becoming sophisticated day by day, right? So that's one of the biggest challenges, the varying attacks and how these attacks are launched. And then by the nature of these attacks, it is about trying to get the username password of an employee. So various stealth techniques are being used, social engineering are used, people are contacted through emails, phone, social media, and the likes to disclose their credentials. So again, that becomes a real problem. And once the attacker has identified, there has been able to get the username password, then then the user, it looks like a legitimate user, right? So it's very hard beyond that to build protections around it. So these are the various challenges that comes to our mind when we look at an ATO attack. So another poll question before we go into the how we are protecting as part of Aptrana is how confident are you guys with the current mitigation techniques that you have in your organization for ATO? The poll has started. Again, quick 30 seconds, and then we'll close that. Give it close to poll. Okay. About 60% have said you are somewhat confident. About 30% have said around you are very confident. So that's a good sign. At least that shows us that there has been a thought process put in place in your organizations to think about ATO attacks, and you know what is being done. So we'll now talk about how Aptrana goes about protecting against these ATO attacks. So as I said, as the nature of the attack goes, it is complex in nature, right? There are various attack vectors that is possible, and there is no one size fit all, right? There's no one protection methodologies which will protect against all these attack vectors. And because of this, in Aptrana, we have created a multi-layer defense against an account takeover attack. It starts with a simple rate limiting rules to a complex behavioral policies that can be built for a login page, and the behavioral policies can be built across the based on the user behaviors, IP behavior, or even or even based on the geographical location from which a user is logging in. So based on various patterns and behavioral models that Aptrana builds in, we'll be able to create policies and start taking mitigation actions when there are anomalies detected. Another layer of defense is the bot mitigation layer, which is very important when it comes to an ATO attack, because as Karthik demonstrated when he showed the credential stuffing, or a credential stuffing attack is generally launched using bots, right? What Karthik saw was a simple form of it. There would be a complex varieties of credential stuffing attacks that can be launched using millions of IPs and the things. And those will not be able to be, you will not be able to detect using the behavioral models or the rate limiting models, right? So in those cases, the bot mitigation models kicks in. It is able to differentiate between a human and a bot, and then track the patterns of behaviors of the bot and determine whether it's a bot is malicious or not, and take mitigation actions around it. So that's the second layer of defense, where the bot mitigation module kicks in, identifies whether it's a human bot, and if it's a bot, whether it's a good bot or a bad bot. Apart from that, the right-hand side talks about the more complex attacks, which is when a vulnerability in an application has been exploited, and there has been malicious links on the website, or there is a man-in-the-browser attacks. In those cases, how do you protect? So for that, we have where there are more complex layer of defenses, right? Starting from the client-side protection, where we automatically create CSP policies based on the application's needs, and those policies will help you prevent against the man-in-the-browser attack. And the biggest piece is protection against the vulnerabilities, right? And Aptrana's core USP is around this, where we are the only vendors who help you identify the vulnerabilities and protect against those. So for some of the attacks which Karthik pointed out, for the attack to be successful, an hacker had to exploit a vulnerability that are there in the application. With AppRunner in play, you will be able to identify these vulnerabilities upfront and then protect against those using the WAF. So you could do virtual patching at the WAF level. Around this, we have recently launched Swift Comply, where we give a 72-hour guarantee to protect against the vulnerabilities that are identified in your application at the WAF layer, right? So once a site is onboarded, within 72 hours, all your vulnerabilities would be protected. So that's an interesting feature, which again would help you as another layer of defense against an account takeover attack. And last but not least, our biggest value proposition is also the managed service that we provide. And through this managed service, we are able to help customers to protect against complex bot attacks, right? And even in complex scenarios. So one of our customers, which was a visa booking site, they had a complex problem where whenever they opened a visa booking, malicious hackers were able to log in and book these appointments, ensuring that the legitimate users are not able to. So for this, though our out-of-box defenses were able to protect against 70 to 80% of this, there was still complex attacks that was being launched. And in those cases, we had understood those attack patterns and created customized policies, understanding the sequence of the application and how the application behaves, and writing complex sequential rules and other things to mitigate against these advanced bot mitigation, advanced bots, right? So that's another core USP that we bring. And along with with all these 5 layers, we are able to provide a comprehensive protection against an ATO attack. Now I will again hand it over to Karthik so that he can show this protection working with Aptron.
Sure. Thank you, Vivek. Once again, very nice coverage of the entire protection landscape and everything. This is good. Let me share my screen again, and we are pretty much going to try the same attacks again with against a protected site. Let me share this. Share. Okay. Once again, if you can see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can.
So we will go here. Let me just open a protected site, which is pretty much this. The backend is the same, same web server, but this is actually protected by AppTrana. The only difference is that. So the site is the same, but it's protected by AppTrana. And because it's protected by AppTrana, any attacks that you try from here will actually be blocked, right? Sorry, yeah. Suppose you try something like that. Immediately AppTrana will block you with a 406 not acceptable. This is what we actually send back a status when we have actively blocked an attack. This incident ID is something that if you're facing an issue and you think that it's not it's not because this is something that you can use to reach out to support and investigate detailed causes of why it happened and why it was blocked and things like that. So so this is like, again, so obviously this is protected against various attacks, right off the bat. This is not special protection you have to enable. We will block, the OWASP attacks and all the typical kind of attacks out of the bat. Now let's do the same thing about the email. Let's find, 1 second. That is probably, yeah. So this email is Rajat has sent another email maybe a few months later. Pretty similar similar mail. The only difference is that this is now targeting my new site. And though Funny said such good words about me about being CTO 20 years in security and stuff, I go ahead and click at it again. So I click it here, and sure enough, thanks to AppTrana, it's blocked. So you are protected. Your users are protected. Your website is protected. So as long as this thing, your regular kind of attacks will get blocked, including these kind of things. But here, sorry, I went to the wrong one. So let me just open this again. Let's go back here. Let me just log in anyways now, right? And as we saw earlier, right? This is a link that has been corrupted. Now this site has been protected, has been protected by AppTrana, but they didn't protect it before they launched. They protected it somewhere down the road, maybe a month later, maybe a year later. It was already compromised, right? So that's not to say protecting a site afterwards is a bad thing, right? It's like one of those things, right? When is the best time to plant a tree, right? Like 20 years back. When is the second best time? Today, right? So protect it when you can. That's always, you're going to save yourself going ahead, and that's the right way to go about it. So, but your site is already compromised. But still, with this thing, I will just make sure that you're able to see this at the same time to see that you're not going to get more of these things. So when you click this, yeah, sure, this goes there, you don't see anything, but credentials don't get leaked now. And the reason for that is if you actually go here and look at the console, what's happened is that we have, AppTrana has pushed a content security policy to make sure that, that only legitimate places you can actually talk to. In this particular case, I mean, in the real case, it'll be a little more complex in terms of script and everything, but this was a simple thing that we pushed automatically based on analysis. So when it was trying to hit the attacker's attacker's IP here and try to push the credentials, it was blocked automatically. So that is this is protected by the client side protection. And the last thing, of course, is that if I run the same attack against the protected server, what will happen is that you'll see that it starts getting blocked. After a point, you start getting 406s because we see too many login failures hitting the same thing over and over again, right? And after that, the attacker, because they can keep sending, it doesn't matter. But in this case, the script says, okay, you know what? Too many attacks, it's getting blocked. There is security protection in place. I'll give up and go somewhere else. So this is the high level or overall overall protection that we have multiple layers. Security is all about layers, right? You block the SQL injection, you block a rate limiting, you also block this. You also know about stolen passwords. You also save in the client side part of it. That's how you actually get a good security kind of stuff, not just one thing to do, right? Cool. All right, Vivek, I can turn it back to you.
Thanks, Karthik. Thanks. That was a lovely demo and quick and short and sweet. You can stop sharing so that I can share my screen again.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen again. Let me know if you can see my screen. Yeah, okay, great. So, yeah, well, Karthik's demo was great and kudos to him, but still he was just scratching the surface of what AppTrana can do, right? So what Karthik showed piqued your interest, and would you like to have a free trial of AppTrana? We are just opening the poll. You can answer those as the poll being started. Yeah, great. The poll is open. You can answer the poll. Meanwhile, we'll keep going. So, as we come to the end of the presentation, right? We have been talking very closely about account takeover attack and what we do as part of account takeover. But AppTrana is much more than that. And I just wanted to quickly give a quick overview of AppTrana. So AppTrana, as Fanny rightly has said in the beginning, is one of our products, which is a web platform. So we are the only vendors in the market who give a comprehensive application protection, including websites, APIs, and mobile applications. And the reason why we are comprehensive is because we are the only vendors who provide discovery, risk detection, risk protection, and risk monitoring. So what do we mean by that? So as an organization, you might have a lot of external facing assets, and you might not even know what are all the assets that you have as part of your organization. So we have a discovery module which will help you identify all your public-facing assets that are part of your organization, be it web applications, APIs, or mobile apps. And once you have identified all your public-facing assets, you can onboard it behind AppTrana in the AppTrana platform, which will help you do the risk detection, which is essentially identify the vulnerabilities that are there in the application, and then do risk protection using our default rule sets and our custom offerings, right? And along with our risk protection module, we do provide the DDoS mitigation and bot mitigation modules and API protection along with API discovery. So if you look at it with this one module of AppTrana, you get everything that is related to application security. And last but not least, we are known for our managed service. That's something that we are rated highly for, and even in the Gartner's peer insider reports. So as part of our managed service, we do provide a comprehensive service to our customers, where we help manage the complete WAF end-to-end, help you fine-tune your policies to avoid false positives, and ensure that the protection works as it's needed. Last but not least, because we strongly believe that security should not come at the cost of performance, we have also integrated CDN as part of our AppTrana module, ensuring that you get the best in both security and speed. So that's our AppTrana module for you. And and it kind of closes the complete puzzle, right? Starting from discovering what are your assets. Once you have identified what are your assets, then how do you identify what are the risk posture of your applications? Once you have identified your risk posture of your applications, ensure that all your risk is protected. Again, I want to highlight a Swift Comply feature that we have recently launched that goes a long way in closing this puzzle, and constant monitoring, right? We are the only vendors who guarantee 0 false positives. And the reason why we are able to do that is through our managed service, where we are able to monitor how your site is behaving and fine-tune the policies to ensure all the sites remain in block mode. So all the applications, thousands of applications that are behind Aptrana remains in block mode from day 0. With that, we come to the end of our presentation and we are open for questions.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of questions, Vivek and Karthik. So the first one is, how do we protect from the account takeover session, J session?
So I think that's where Karthik came, right? So there's a session hijacking. I mean, what Karthik showed was there was a session leaked, and essentially that session was used to used by another user to log in or masquerade as the other user. So that's as a typical session hijacking use case. This is the same way privilege escalations happen and the things. And the way to protect is again multi-layered, right? First is all these attacks can happen only when there is a vulnerability that can be exploited. So identify vulnerabilities, protect it so that things don't go haywire. Even if that is exploited, then there are multiple other layers, right? So starting from the client-side protection that we have, the bot mitigation law modules, depending on the type of the attack vectors that is being launched, one of these layers would kick in to protect against those. Karthik, you want to add anything over here?
No, I think you did cover it. But what I would say is that, yeah, by in and of itself, right? It's like, how do you protect against stolen credit cards? Not easy. You can just block all known leaked passwords. Those are the kind of solutions that you can do, right? Ditto for the session thing, right? Some of it is some of the response you will follow on the application as well to see whether you can validate sessions to browsers, machines, IPs, geographies, whatever, right? We do the same thing in terms of this, that hey, there's unusual activity here, and then take action, right? So that's the way to do it, right? But a stolen credential is obviously a difficult thing to, or a bad thing to happen, kind of stuff, right? So in our case, the core thing is that protect it before it even happens, right? That's the thing. You can't steal a credential, because typically that exploits vulnerabilities in the website that we identify during scanning and protect in the WAF rules as well, right? So that will keep you safe.
Yeah, so the next question is, what if the domain in the phishing email is different? In the scenario where the attacker tried to steal the credentials, not the session ID.
So I'm not 100% sure I understand the question, but in the phishing email, so the phishing email, the domain that it targets, a different means there's no different there. What it's trying to target is a vulnerable website. So this particular phishing email that was shown here is exploiting vulnerabilities in the website. So when you click it, it actually will go into the website. And if you happen to be logged in, which most of us are, or the browser auto logs in, which again, most of us, if we let the browser remember our credentials, happens automatically, then the vulnerability will get exploited on the web server, and the credential gets leaked. So that's the point of that demo, is to show that it can be automated. The user doesn't really have to go on the website and take an action. They just click a link somewhere, and then still the credential gets leaked. And if you just look at the UI, you have no inkling that any such thing happened.
Yeah. So how does the solution block the phishing link?
Okay, so since this was exploiting a vulnerability in the application, it doesn't specifically, Aptrana in this case is not specifically blocking the phishing link. It's protecting the site against the vulnerability, which means it automatically blocks the phishing link.
So that's essentially through the virtual patching that we provide, right? So as part of our offering, we would have done the scanning. We would have identified these are the vulnerabilities. So, and then we would know how these vulnerabilities would be exploited. And for those, there would be a virtual patching in the WAF layer, which would be checking for such patterns of attacks. And when such patterns of attacks come, then we would block those, right? So that's again, we don't want to say that this is the only way of doing it. Again, there are multiple layers of defenses here. This is one layer of defense that was working in this case.
Yeah, so this question, I think, Is there a way to eliminate these vulnerabilities by using passwordless solutions and using strong source integrity check using passkey based solutions? Are these not strong enough to protect from ATO attacks?
So, I mean, Vivek, I'll give my short answer and then you can also jump in. But definitely it's a big step forward, right? Because when we do passwordless solutions, it pretty much means a password breach attack can go away. So that particular attack vector you might have closed by this, right? But there are other ways to do it. For example, what we did with the session hijacking. You could very well have logged in using a passwordless system and it wouldn't have made a difference, right? Because while the session is active, it's active and it can be used by anybody kind of stuff, right? Again, depending on how the backend has been implemented. In terms of anything else, the other things also, right? It's absolutely encouraged that the web server should obviously take as much precautions or as secure these things as possible, right? But there are new vulnerabilities coming out every day, and it need not be specifically in your source code. It could be in a third-party library, or it could be anything else, right? That's why, once again, you'd never hear anybody from our company or our security teams ever tell you that do only this and nothing else, right? Security is about this thing. Absolutely fix it in the application. Absolutely hold the application to the highest standards of security, but also have protections in place in other places, right?
Yeah,
So,
and I think Karthik has probably covered it, but again, I want to re-emphasize the point, right? Security is about layers of defenses, right? So you need to build multiple layers. Yes, passwordless technologies will help, and it is one layer. But as Karthik said, session hijacking can still happen. There could be some other vulnerabilities that could have been exploited to do privilege escalation, right? So account takeovers, the chances of account takeovers are still possible. And passwordless technologies might not be apt for all types of applications, right? So again, it all depends on the use case that you are driving towards and where it can work. So yes, that will work, but that will not work. That's again is not the silver bullet. Like MFA is not the silver bullet. Yes, MFA will work, but MFA is not the silver bullet, right? Every one of these are additional layers that will keep improving your protection of your websites.
yeah, I mean, there is an analogy, right? So you have your house. Will you have a single latch to protect it, or you have multiple locks? You have a main gate, you have a security guard, you have a camera that looks at who is coming. So yeah, so the layers of defense is that analogy. So yeah, so next question I'll take. So no, Aptrana does not protect internal applications. We only protect external facing applications. Next one is how to protect password spray attack. I think you demonstrated that, right, Karthik?
I think it's pretty much. I mean, in the leak credentials. I mean, to actually get into this thing, it is that we are protecting a website. So we're looking at it. Password sprays using the same password on multiple sites, which is the leak credentials use case, and we'll block it directly on that site. So
yeah, so as long as all the sites are protected behind Aptrana, we will protect. Okay. Is it possible for Aptrana tool implement with public cloud security like Azure and AWS?
So yeah, I mean, even if you have applications hosted in our AWS Azure, our solution is agnostic towards it, right? So yes, it will work seamlessly with the application hosted in any environment.
So Vivek, this is our favorite question that comes in every webinar. So we have a slide prepared for it. So which is the next slide? Okay, how is your WAF better than other WAFs? So I think we have that slide. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's a good point. And again, right, I tried to cover some of these in this, but the major differentiator I would talk about again is the risk-based approach that we provide to our customers, right? So as Karthik demonstrated and through the webinar we demonstrated, right? An application is as secure as its weakest link. So if there is a vulnerability, then hackers would exploit it, right? And no matter how best the security you have, if there are any vulnerabilities that it's not patched, then your application is prone to breaches. So the best thing that we do is we give you that visibility. We tell you that, hey, these are the application that these are the vulnerabilities. This is your risk posture. This is your weakest link. And then we provide protection against those. We clearly say that, hey, of these so many vulnerabilities are already protected by our default rules. Some can be protected by custom rules, and some needs to be fixed in code. So you get that clear visibility on what is the action that needs to be taken. So that's our biggest pillar, right? And apart from that, the other pillars that on which our solution is built on is on the behavioral DDoS solution that we talked about, right? We are the pioneers here, where instead of giving static rate limits, we have built a behavioral DDoS mitigation module, where we understand the behavior of users and create policies around that, so that if there is any anomaly in the behaviors, then mitigation actions trigger. So this makes DDoS mitigation more powerful. As I said, we are the only vendors who guarantee zero false positive. The reason why we are able to do that is because we have a strong managed service team, right? And with that, we are able to confidently say that we will be able to monitor your sites, we'll be able to fine-tune the applications policies based on your needs, ensuring that application remains in block mode from day zero. And last but not least is the asset discovery piece, which I again talked about, where we ensure we don't just start with the applications that you give. We are more concerned about, as an organization, you are protected, right? And as an organization, you are only protected if you are protecting all your assets in your organization. And for that, the visibility is the key. And we have a strong module there which will help you discover the assets, which are public facing assets, be it web applications, APIs, or mobile apps.
Yeah, so is this tool completely automated or needs administration? Yeah, I mean, so this is the managed services aspect that Vivek mentioned. Aptrana is fully managed. So everything right from onboarding, testing for initial false positives, 0-day patches, everything, and DDoS and bot monitoring is taken care of by the managed services team. All you need to do is, just check the attack logs and request log reports that we have on the portal. Vivek, anything that you want to add?
I think you covered it well, Funny. Yes, I mean, we are a managed solution, and for all practical purposes, as a customer, it is completely automated.
Yeah, so how does behavior analysis work if I'm under a brute force attack and the attacker is using multiple IPs and each IP is trying to use a single username and password, and after 10 minutes the IP does try again. So if the valid use so is the valid user not impacted while the attacker is stopped? So one small thing, so we have a detailed case study on a similar attack that we recently logged for a Fortune 500 company, where there were millions of IPs used to bring down the site using various measures. So I encourage you to go to our case study section and read that.
Yeah.
And yeah, over to you, Karthik. And
No, just a small thing, actually. I think I agree. This is it's a detailed, a long. It's not going to be a quick answer. But just the last part, I'll just say the entire premise of Aptrana is this, right? We will be target enough to block the attacker by various things, right? IP, geo, characteristics of the request they sent, etc., etc., in such a way that the legitimate users are not affected. That is the core. I mean, that's what we strive to do every day, right? The whole idea, it's easy to just lock down the entire website, but that's not really giving good security, right? That way.
Vivek, anything you want to add?
I think as Karthik pointed and you pointed out, it's a complete webinar in itself. But yes, I mean, short answer is we do protect against those, but you would need to have a detailed discussion around how we do that. You can look at our past webinars or reach out for a trial and we can explain you how we do it.
Yeah, and that case study is a good start because there were millions of IPs used and we just published it. Do you need to install software, or how does it block this IP?
So you don't need to install software, and the way we block IP is that your site's traffic, you have to change your site's your DNS entry to make sure your site's traffic is routed through us in the cloud. So that's how we block it. So all traffic comes through us. Think of us as a CDN or this thing, right? So it's a cloud WAF, and all traffic will come through us. So we decide what to block.
So is it true that even 2FA can be taken over? Yeah, so there are multiple articles. Just search for MFA, how it can be breached. I think the last article that I read, there were about 6 to 7 methods that people used. And session hijacking is one way that Karthik demonstrated. So yeah, 2FA can still be taken over. Anything else that you want to add, Karthik?
No. Yes. And again, we are not discounting 2FA, right? 2FA is a layer. Nowhere as a security practitioners we will say don't use 2FA, right? Do use 2FA, but don't blindly rely only on 2FA and say that, hey, because it's 2FA is there, I'm completely protected. There are other ways and means on which attacks can happen and do build multiple layers of defense.
Yeah, I think there was a related question. Even with 2FA, if the session can be hijacked, the 2FA won't help us. Is it right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That was what I mean. Though Karthik did not show that the 2FA was enabled, even if 2FA was enabled for that user, the session hijacking would have taken place. I mean, there's nothing stopping the same vulnerability to be exploited because 2FA was done.
Right. But again, like I guess we are answering this again in a similar way. It's not like two-factor authentication is useless. I mean, it's definitely a valuable tool to use, right? It just depends on the site also. That, for example, when you're taking a reasonable transaction, for example, transferring money, ask for 2FA again. Those kind of things are good, right? Because then only if the 2FA is actually broken will it be this. A simple session hijack will not cut it, right? So there are better ways to, but so absolutely continue using 2FA. It's not like 2FA, we are saying that 2FA is gone, forget about it. That's not the intent at all here.
Then is SSO based login by ADFS helps to protect against password spray and brute force attack?
I mean, yes and no, right? See, eventually SSO is a single sign-on. The single sign-on page can be, again, an account takeover can happen on that page, right? So see, you are reducing your attack radius. That way it helps, but that doesn't mean that just because you have an SSO, ATO cannot happen, right? ATO can still happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so the questions are never ending. There are 15 more questions, but unfortunately we are 5 minutes over time. So for these 15 people for whom we haven't been able to answer, maybe our team will reach out to you with answers, and then we can take it from there. Thank you so much for joining this session. It was a very interactive one, and yeah, hopefully you found a lot of value. And we do these webinars once every month. So please subscribe to our newsletter and sign up for these webinars. And we have a bunch of useful content that we publish on the website also. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.